here to argue in support of the motion, Declinists Be Damned, Bet on America. He's a geopolitical strategist, and he is author of the book, The Accidental Superpower. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Zeihan.
I considered declining this invitation when it was made. NPR intellectual is not really my crowd. I live in Texas. But then I realized that the word damn was in the proposition, so I'd be allowed to swear on NPR. A lot. So here I am. But enough about my hopes and dreams. Let's talk about you. Where are my boomers? People born 1946 to 1964. Come on, hands up. Yeah. You guys are freaking army. You're the largest generation we have ever had.
You need to tell the radio audience how many people put hands up.
Oh, it's like a third of the total,
Okay.
and we got a lot of youngsters up top. So, it's a swarm. Most of your consumption, however, is behind you. Your kids have left home. The house is paid for. You're at the height of your tax-paying experience, which means that the government's like, I'll take some of that, and then I'll take some more. Today's budget battles, that's the start of our debate about figuring out not how to pay things with your money, but about how to pay your retirement without your money. Something to look forward to. Which sucks for this next group. Where am I, Gen Y? Or excuse me, Gen X. Oh, we're all here. Yeah, we're the smallest generation as a percentage of the population. So very soon it will be up to us, all 11 of us, to pay for 75 million retiring boomers. Taxes are going to be awful, but it's not quite as bad as it seems. Because while the boomers are so convinced that they're so special, there's actually a boomer class globally that, relative to the population, is about 20% larger than it is here. So yes, we do have a boomer donkulous tax bill just around the corner, but it's actually considerably less than what everyone else is going to have to pay. So, not exactly hope, but, Schadenfreude. And then there's Gen Y. Gen Y folks, the millennials. A few of you showed up tonight, that's great. Your age group does the consuming. Kids, houses, cars, pot. It's spend. Your purchases, especially the pot, by the way, are why the economy is doing so well right now. Because of you, because of your bulk, the United States is going to be the youngest developed country in the world in just 4 years, younger than China. And in 15 years, when you have matured, and I use that term in the loosest possible way, you will swarm into the tax-paying class with a fervor that Gen X just could have never matched. And Gen X will be settling into the TARDIS-like space that the boomers will be vacating. And America's 20-year effort to digest the boomer demography will finally be over. Now, as an Xer, it really pains me to say this, but you Gen Yers are special. Because there are no German Ys, or Japanese Ys, or Italian or Canadian Ys. It's as if the entire developed world forgot how to have kids around 1975. And I think we've all traveled enough to know they got the basics down. This combination, a bigger global boomer cadre but no global Y cadre, spells disaster. Consumer activity and tax income will shrink every single year. Retiree costs will increase every single year. It's a deflationary spiral with no escape, and it will happen everywhere but the United States. And that's the good news. Let's talk about the bad news. Let's talk about trade. The idea that you can trade with a country a quarter, a third, halfway around the world, that's a very strange idea. Until recently, major countries used their navies to protect trade between their colonies and their mainland. You didn't trade with your neighbor if you could avoid it, because you never knew when someone might throw a war and you lose access to everything. These separate imperial systems clashed, and those clashes culminated in World War II. Now, at the end of that war, the United States forced all its allies to sit down, and we imposed a new economic system upon the world. We call it free trade. We told them they didn't need navies. We would patrol the global oceans and allow them to send whatever they wanted anywhere to anyone at any time. In addition, we would open our market, the only consumer market to survive the war, so they could export their ways back to affluence. In exchange, there was one demand. This alliance would fight the Cold War our way. You heard that right. We bribed up an alliance to take on the Soviets. And it worked. Free trade created the free world. Europe united, Japan rebuilt, China modernized. The global population tripled, global GDP increased by a factor of 10. 1/3 of the Chinese and Italian GDP export-driven. The EU, ASEAN, the Chinese Communist Party, all of that would have been impossible without the safe and reliable access to the global oceans and the US market. Which leads us to the world's most inconvenient truth. The United States didn't create free trade as an economic plan, but as a strategic gambit. We don't use free trade's economic features. Our exports, 9% of GDP, the lowest in the world by a significant margin. We are the least integrated country out there. America's economy and future are not dependent upon the global system. It's the global system that is predicated upon America's willingness to sublimate its market and its military in order to fight a war that ended a generation ago. That is not a safe bet. I mean, really, have you met Americans? We kind of shoot from the hip. The world is now dependent upon our mood. And even should we stick to our Prozac regimen, the majority of the world's boomers will still retire around 2020, which just as surely will trigger a Great Depression if we're lucky. There are many other reasons similarly inevitable why the US will remain the global superpower well beyond our lifetimes. The shale revolution has pushed North America within 2 million barrels per day of outright oil independence, and we now have the lowest electricity prices, non-subsidized, in the world. The US is home to nearly half of global consumer spending, double that of the combined BRICS. The Navy has a 10-to-1 ratio conservatively in terms of global firepower, and the commitment of that imbalance to the global commons is why trade works. And the dollar is the sole denomination for every commodity in every country, especially for those export-driven rivals who are utterly dependent upon free seas and open markets. So when you think of the US, it doesn't matter if you feel a swelling pride, a loathing, or a resigned sigh. Your conclusion is as singular as it is clear. Bet on America. Declinists be damned.
Thank you, Peter Zine.